Chicago is really putting up a fight. You got the mayor saying, hey, we don't want Donald Trump here. We don't want the National Guard here. We don't want ICE here. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm coming in because the people of Chicago want me. Watch.
It's just gone from bad to worse to disaster.
No one really feels safe. It's impossible to feel safe in a city like this, especially with the leadership we have.
Insane. My opinion, not enough police officers.
The police is really unappreciated for offhand under Brandon Johnson, Lori Lightfoot, J.B. Priester. Those are three are the reason why nobody don't want to be a police.
Their policies when it comes to crime is not working at all.
I think the biggest piece of the pie has to be more police officers, more protection. That's what the people want.
Yes, of course. You know, this isn't rocket science. Guys, I mean, you want to be safe. You want your children to be safe. What is it when, you know, when you're buying a home, you look for a safe neighborhood. The idea that somehow Brandon Johnson thinks that he doesn't need to keep people safe. I mean, I don't know what he's thinking. He's turned it into, you know, it's ABT, anything but Trump. If Trump is a good idea, it doesn't matter. Trump can offer you the cure for cancer. They don't want it. Trump can offer you money to help keep your people safe. They don't want it because it's Trump. Now, how stupid is that? So here, let's go to the ultimate survivor here, who actually puts Brandon Johnson in his place on Morning Joe the other day. He asked him 5 different times, hey, buddy, would you take a little money for the police? Oh, Brandon doesn't want it. No, because he's more concerned about housing than he is safety.
So let me ask you, Mr. Mayor, those all sound like great programs. I'm curious, would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but I know it's not policing alone. You've told me everything else you want. I'm curious, and this does come down to an ideological difference between people. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying that
that's not the question I asked. My question is, and I just need a yes or a no, do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. If you get all of those other social programs that 800 million that New York City does, Los Angeles, other people do with great success, would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer.
Okay, all right. It goes on for like another 2 minutes. So short answer, no. Brandon Johnson does not want any more police. No. He doesn't need that. But, simultaneously, apparently he's also not willing to give up the 150 police officers he has on detail for he and his wife. Kid you not. So this came up in a press conference the other day, and the reporter, it's hard to hear, you might have to turn up the volume. The reporter says to him, hey, you got 150, you and Stacy. Would you and Stacy be willing to give up some of your police detail to kind of help the streets of Chicago? And watch this answer.
And your wife, Stacy, be willing to cut your security detail from 150 sworn police officers and put those police officers back on the street where they can protect real Chicagoans?
So we're very proud of the work that we're doing collectively to ensure that our police officers have the resources that they need. As I've said repeatedly, it's policing and affordable housing, it's policing and youth employment, it's policing and mental and behavioral health care services. It's going to take all of us, the business community, the philanthropic community. We're working collectively with Cook County government, the state of Illinois, the state's attorney as well. The volume of cases that we are pushing towards the state's attorney so that we can continue to close out these cases as we really drill down with our detectives division as they solve crime, as they get the evidence over to the state's attorney, gives her the ability to make the prosecution so that we can continue to deter crime in the city of Chicago. That's the holistic approach that we're taking. Thank you.
Okay. So here's the good news for you, buddy boy. Guess what? You may not have a choice. Because you see, Tom Homan wants to go in there with ICE. And you guys won't cooperate with Tom Homan and ICE. But it doesn't really matter. And by the way, short answer to that question, yeah, Brandon's not giving up his 150 police detail. He and Stacy are hoarding that detail. It's the same thing. We keep talking about this. You know, you live in a fancy house with a fancy gate and your own security detail. You'd think we were in Latin America or something. That's what happens there. I mean, I've traveled throughout. I remember being in Tegucigalpa in Honduras. And in Honduras, it's a really dangerous place. And so everywhere you went in Tegucigalpa, you'd see people, same thing in Paraguay, with you'd have armed guards outside these homes, okay? Because if you could afford it, you had an armed guard. Who wants to live like that? I'm sorry, but again, if there's one thing the government's supposed to do, it's keep you safe. And guess what? They have the constitutional power to do it. So what the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, the Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations, and basically immigration comes under that. Okay, so you get the Commerce Clause, you get the Supremacy Clause, you name it. There's a whole bunch of clauses, right? We could go through them all. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. It allows Congress to pass immigration laws as needed. Congress has passed them. So the government, ICE, is in charge of enforcing them. So Congress passes the law. They're like, okay, you can't be in the country illegally. And somehow some mayor of Chicago is going to come up with something new, or the LA LA mayor Karen Bass, or the California governor, they're going to say, well, we're not going to adhere to the law. Law doesn't pertain to us. We don't care about the law. I mean, you even have some precedent here, the Foreign Affairs and National Sovereignty Implied Powers Clause. And there was a case that actually dealt with immigration back in 1989, another one in 2012, and it basically affirmed, again, the federal government having the right there. So, Chicago, did you see what just happened today? Supreme Court saying, you know what? Trump administration can resume all those immigration sweeps in the city of Los Angeles. The Supreme Court giving the green light to the ICE ops there. So I would just say, hey, Chicago, hey, Brandon Johnson, maybe you want to pay attention because you're not on the right side of the law on this one. You really aren't. And again, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible story that happened over the weekend. But that poor Ukrainian woman, I mean, I got to tell you, I was so shaken by it. I was so shaken. I saw the video yesterday, and then I was really shaken because I noticed that none of the mainstream media had reported on it. It was all what you would call alternative, right? I mean, no one in the mainstream media was covering this. And you remember what they did with Daniel Penny and everything. So you know that there's a double standard. And I was so disheartened by all of it. I mean, I'm not showing the video because it's just not like it was hard for me to sleep last night. I was really upset by it. And, you know, if you want to find it, you'll see it on X. But the president also said, the video is horrible to even talk about, but he said all his love goes out to that poor woman's family She just did not deserve that. I want to briefly go to the president speaking on this today.
Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country.
In other words, again, what is the government's job but to keep you safe, to protect you, to protect your property? And if the government's not allowed to do that because, the Charlotte mayor thinks it's more important to protect the rights of homeless people that are suffering from mental health challenges, instead of putting them in a place where they can get help, she thinks it's okay for us to just give them a free... I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I can't buy it. I'm sickened by it. The mayor, let me read to you her statement there in Charlotte, in North Carolina, there argues that Americans need to have more compassion for the homeless. And this is after this horrible, horrible situation. She says, and I quote, "We will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. I want to be clear that I'm not villainizing those who struggle with their mental health or those who are unhoused. Mental health disease is just that, a disease like any other that needs to be treated with the same compassion, diligence, and commitment as cancer or heart disease. Also, those who are unhoused are more frequently the victims of crimes and not the perpetrators. Too many people who are on the street need a safe place." Okay. Nobody disagrees with that. So do something, lady, right? Like, again, if somebody's being arrested, if you keep arresting them and letting them out and arrest them and let them out and arrest them and let them out and arrest them and let them out, help them multiple times, and you never get them the mental health treatment, at some point, you know what? The people are going to hold you responsible. We are a very compassionate group of people. But when you are putting everybody else in danger because you're trying to protect a minority of people that really need other provisions and other kinds of assistance, and you're not giving it to them, and instead you run the risk such as what we saw, well, I'm sorry, people aren't going to go for it. So again, you get back to Donald Trump's historic ratings. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to figure out. He's promising to keep people safe. And you know what? People want to be safe. Gavin, do you think you could imitate that? You're imitating everything else, for goodness sakes. Gavin Newsom, who's trying to tweet on X like he's the president in all caps. It's really pathetic. He just got delivered a big, big blow. The Supreme Court of the United States of America says, hey, guess what? You know what? Donald Trump can resume those ICE raids. Because you see, as we were just discussing, you got the Commerce Clause, you got the Supremacy Clause, you got the Foreign Affairs and National Sovereignty Clause. You got a lot of clauses there. The federal government doesn't have a ton of power. It really doesn't. But on this, it does. Okay, it does. Trust me. It has the power over the borders, and it has the power to police who's in the country, who's not in the country. And by the way, if you want to change it, you better go to Congress and change it, because Congress wrote the law. Now we just have to enforce it. So ICE's job is to enforce it. The government's job is to enforce. Oh, California, if you have a mind of your own, then guess what? They can bring the National Guard in there. That was decided by Ninth Circuit, right? And now the Supreme Court taking this one up. So I'm telling you, they're going to have to figure this out and figure it out fast. He's got no sense of humor.
You think for a second I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
We do a little trolling. It's called we do a little trolling.
Just a little. Teeny bit. We also do a lot of winning. Again, look at the headline. Over my left shoulder. Supreme Court lets Trump administration resume sweeping immigration stops in Los Angeles. So that's a big win for poor little Gavin. Gavin, who's just not knowing which way to turn. It's really interesting. For a while, I actually thought he was getting it. For a while, when he came out against transports and he started going on some conservative podcasts, I was like, okay, Gavin gets it. Ooh, he might actually be a problem in 28. And then he went right back to the well, right? Stupidity, total stupidity. He started imitating Trump on Twitter, and now he's just, digging in his heels on things like crime. And the problem with this one is the more you sit there and say, hey, we don't want your help on crime, the more you sit there and say, hey, we don't have a problem, when everybody knows the statistics, and even if you're massaging those, they know reality, you're not going to get anywhere. You are cementing the utter extinction of the Democrat Party. Like if any of you had a brain, you'd actually think about, let's come up with creative ways maybe to work with Donald Trump on this. Let's actually make our city safer. And then, you can try and take the credit at the end. He actually does want solutions. I disagree with the woman we played earlier on The View who said, oh, it's all politics. They don't want solutions. No, Donald Trump's a businessman. Trust me. He wants solutions. Solutions. All he wants is solutions. It's part of the problem. It's why he's so impatient. It's why he wants everything done yesterday. It's why everything's moving at the, record speed, 60 miles an hour. Here you go. The Supreme Court of the United States in a decision 6-3. 3 guesses how that was. The 3 that didn't like it. The Supreme Court is pausing a lower court ruling that had prohibited the Trump administration from conducting roving immigration arrests across Los Angeles. So, in other words, they're pausing that. It may come up again as an issue. Again, a lot of this stuff is going to remain somewhat unresolved, but I think it's important to note that they're pausing the lower court. In other words, the lower court does not have the right to intervene on this one. And that's a good thing. I still go back to my interpretation of it, whether it's the Commerce Clause, whether it's the Supremacy Clause, whether it's the Foreign Affairs and National Sovereignty Clause. Again, if you are not able to control who is in your country, if you don't have borders like every other country in the whole world has, then how are you really a country? Okay, I realize this is a whole open border movement. Look, Germany tried it, and I'm sorry, but they get a real problem now because a lot of people on welfare, guess what the number one name of the people are on welfare? Unfortunately, it's a certain demographic because they let all these people in from Syria. They thought they were being generous. Granted, they have a very heavy conscience there in Germany, and everybody is named Mohammed, that the majority of people that are on the list for help have that name. So, you have a certain culture that you have to buy into. And I think you can be very pro-immigration, but immigration that is tracked, right? So you know who's here, and immigration that's thought through. So I'm not saying everybody has to have a PhD or that everybody has to be a Christian, for goodness sakes. No, we pride ourselves on our diversity, but you also just have to be thoughtful about, are these people going to be contributing members to society? Will we become a better nation, a better country, a better melting pot? And I use that word melting pot as opposed to the stupid salad bowl, right? The left wants to be a freaking salad bowl where nobody gets along. We are all American together, and let's remember that, and let's cherish that. That is the exquisite beauty, right, of this country, that we're so unique. And no one can take that away from us. Well, they've tried. They've tried. But they are not succeeding. You know who tried? The guy who couldn't seem to figure out what day it was.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
I like that too much. I like it too much. Hey, thank you so much, Chuck Diesel. 100% straight facts. You know it all the time here. And a little opinion too. And I try to be fair. And I'm very empathetic. So when I talk about things like immigration, please understand. I wouldn't be here, right, if it weren't for immigration. My family's fairly recent. None of us would be here if it wasn't for immigration. So I say this with a big heart. I just think that we need a system. Right? We just need a system so we know what's going on, and that we have people that are going to help make us better and that want to be American, right? You're American first.